Welcome back, everyone, to Daring Discussions, the podcast where we keep it real, raw, and righteous. It's me, your girl, Brittany Broaddus-Smith, the number one Christian sexologist and your favorite girlfriend. We are back at it like we never left for another episode of this season's theme, sex. And this episode is very special to me because our guest of the day is. Did you know I was a triplet? Guest of the day is one of my favorite psychologists on the planet. There is nobody who is better equipped to have this conversation about sex and anxiety than the one and only Dr. Shonda Reynolds. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her on so y'all can meet her and fall as much in love with her as I am. Adrian!
First of all, I love the intro music.
Oh, thank you. Isn't it so fun?
Yes, it's super.
Thank you very much. I be jamming.
I'm so proud of you for this platform. Like, you're literally doing it. I don't know anybody else who's having these types of conversations. It's so needed. I'm a firm supporter in your work. I literally talk about you all the time because the people of God need this. The people of God need it. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much. And I could say all the same exact things about you. There are psychologists, there are Black psychologists, but there is no other Dr. Shonda. You are the people's psychologist, Black women's. You are a psychologist for the culture, for the girls. Like nobody is doing it like you. And she love the Lord, y'all. And that she got a hoop up in her spirit. She be trying to act like she don't, but that ain't what we talking about today. But just know when she gets to when she's on the pulpit, something different. Her and her sister, they got a little squall right up in here. That's all right. We go keep pushing. So we're going to start off first and foremost. Introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are, what you do, and why you are so dope, as well as uniquely qualified to have this conversation about sex and anxiety.
Yes. So my name is Dr. Shonda Reynolds. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a strong passion for Black women, Black people in overall, but especially Black women because of the intersectionality of oppression and what that looks like for us. We experience life differently. Therefore, I love being an advocate for us. In terms of things that I do, so I have a private practice. I'm also a speaker. So I speak about mental health in various areas and various conferences. God's been having me in the HBCU scene lately, been navigating that space. Yeah. Oh, and I also have a show that airs on about mental health. It airs on Fox Soul, Tubi, Hulu, and DETV. So yeah, excited about the things the Lord is doing.
Come on here, receipts. Come on here, receipts and resume. Okay. She's doing the things. This is not just while you may see her on social media, this is not just on social media. There are credentials and there is a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that y'all may not ever know, but she's really in the highways and the byways doing the work of the Lord. Okay. As it relates to mental health. So let's jump right on in with my favorite segment of the episode, As for Me and My House. And this is for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is our advice segment where we ask questions. You all get to ask questions specifically about the topic that we are covering today. On season 1, I answered all the questions, but that's why for season 2, I said I have experts here that they're going to be able to do it this time around. So this one is for you, Dr. Shonda. The listener says, "Hi, I've recently started dating someone. But my anxiety is making it hard to fully relax and enjoy the relationship, especially when it comes to physical intimacy. Every time I think I'm relaxed or I feel safe, things start to get close. My mind spirals and the thoughts are like, am I moving too fast? Does he really like me? Will they lose interest if I don't want my anxiety to ruin something good, but I also don't want to ignore my feelings. How do I date and build healthy intimacy when anxiety keeps getting in the way?"
That's such a great question. Okay, first of all, girl, I'm gonna get you because you could have sent me this before we started so I can put together a full analysis. But I like what you did there.
We want it
on
from
the
the
spot.
gut. We want it from the gut. Yeah.
No. Okay. All right. So when it comes to this, first of all, congrats on recently dating and going outside of your comfort zone. And it's amazing that you have this amazing guy. And it sounds like you're wanting to let your guard down, but it's like your anxiety is standing in the way. I haven't heard you say yet that you've been able to share that anxiety, the thoughts that you're having with the partner that you're with. And I would say that is key, because obviously you're experiencing some sort of, whether it's a trigger or you're feeling unsafe emotionally, physically, psychologically unsafe. All these things can happen. It can surface. It doesn't mean that your partner did anything wrong. This can be residuals from things that happened in the past. However, in order to move forward as a succinct unit, y'all need to be able to share these types of things so that when the anxiety does creep up, when you're trying to be vulnerable, what have you, your partner can know how they need to show up for you. Your partner can know what it is that they can do in order to make you feel more safe, in order to make you feel more secure, whether that's physically, psychologically, emotionally, what have you. In addition, sis, I will also say I am a firm advocate for therapy, right? I love the fact that you're self-aware. You have a lot going on cognitively, a lot of thoughts coming up in those moments. That means that you're very self-aware. You're heightened in that area, and that's a plus for you. That means that you'll be able to have a lot for your therapist to work with so that they can help you to put the puzzle pieces together to understand what is triggering these thoughts. What was the past situation that caused you to feel unsafe in these situations, and how can we move forward? So I love what you're doing, but it's also a few more steps we can take in order for you to get to a space where you will feel comfortable dating.
I say that's what I would do as for me in my house.
And that's what I would do as for me in my house. Period.
Okay. I wish you would have sent me this ahead of time. And you see how she just poured all of that off the top? And she had it locked and loaded and ready, because this is what you do, sis. This is what you do, sis. So thank you for that. And sis, if you're watching, I hope that you were taking notes and listening in between what she just said and everything that we'll be talking about for the rest of this episode. I'm sure you'll find something that'll be able to, you can run on and see what the end gonna be. Okay. Now, let's for a second though, reel it back a minute, right? Somebody maybe is watching this, maybe living under a rock, and here anxiety is one of those like sexy buzzwords, especially in social media today. Define for us what anxiety actually is, and given your specialty, how it may show up uniquely among Black women.
For sure. You're absolutely right, Brittany. So anxiety has become one of those buzzwords throughout social media, especially for Black men. And I will say that it has its purpose, right? I'm so happy that we're in a space where we're able to finally admit that a lot of us do have anxiety. But in terms of what it is and what it isn't, so anxiety is basically being worried or being fearful about something so much to the point where it's causing psychological distress. And that distress might look like you feeling stunted in terms of what you're able to do, right? So I can't go to work because I'm too anxious, or I'm too fearful or worried about something. I can't complete my homework. I can't build a relationship with somebody in dating because I'm stunted in my areas of growth when it comes to these specific factors. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay. In terms of what makes it clinical, though, because anxiety is completely healthy, right? Anxiety is completely healthy. In fact, I talk more in my book that's coming out in 2026 that if an individual is absent, period, if an individual is absent of any type of anxiety, that's actually a disorder, right? So that means you'll be going about life all willy-nilly, crossing the street without looking both ways, because your amygdala isn't activated to the point where it's telling you that there could be danger in sight, so you got to be aware, right? So anxiety is healthy to a level of being unhealthy when we're in spaces where it's so debilitating to the point where it's impacting my daily functioning. So going back to the example I provided, if I'm so anxious or so worried or so fearful about things happening at work, things happening in the world, things happening within myself or the people around me, to the point where I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't do my homework, I can't go to work, that's how we know it's getting to a clinical level. So anxiety isn't necessarily the issue, it's more so the what you're experiencing it.
And so is it altogether different for Black women, or is it just unique in this presentation?
Yes, I'm so happy that we're bringing this all together for Black women, right? Because anxiety overall, it can cause the same experiences of emotion, right? So again, the basic emotions of fear, worry, anxiety, just constant cognitions or thoughts about the world being unsafe. I'm in an unsafe environment. But for Black women, it can be manifested differently, right? So what we know about anxiety in terms of the textbook definition of how it presents, we know an individual might be more reserved, an individual might be less likely to try new things, an individual might be just come off as being just someone overly anxious and worried and cautious and cognizant of their surroundings all the time. But for Black women, because we are in environments and space, we were reared to where we can't necessarily show our emotions in the same way in which the individuals of the larger society can. Why? Because Black women are labeled as angry. Black women are labeled as overly emotional. Black women are labeled as we can't keep our emotions together, right? Because all these labels that have been placed on us, a lot of us internalize, and sometimes it can be manifested by ways of feeling irritable, right? Feeling angry, right? Not necessarily saying that, again, we're not fitting that stereotype of being an angry Black woman, but sometimes we could be angry and irritable, and it could be related to anxiety because of the way in which we were reared to express emotions or not express emotions.
That's
also
good.
present by ways of physical symptoms. So a lot of times we might be experiencing that back pain that won't go away. Big Mama had those hand pains, that neck pain that never went away, right? She always walked around ailing, but Big Mama was going through anxiety at the time. She just didn't have the language and the therapist at that time to be able to afford it and to diagnose her what she was experiencing. So for Black women, some of the main signs and symptoms that we experience is, again, that irritability, physical symptoms in terms of how it manifests in the body through pain. In addition to that, sleep, right? So sleep is one of those things that is significantly impacted when Black women are anxious, whether we are hypersomnic or insomnia or hypersomnia. So I'm getting more sleep than usual. Instead of sleeping my normal 7 to 8 hours, now I'm getting 10 and 11 hours, which is out of my norm, or I'm getting less sleep than usual. So when studies have been tested and studies found that Black women specifically, we experience anxiety in those top 3 things, which is different than, again, how the general public may experience anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. I told y'all she was good, y'all. She flow. It's just off the top. It's so good. So you mentioned something earlier. You said another buzzword is intersectionality. And when I
Yes.
think about all of those intersecting oppressions and how that can likely compound experiences or impact experiences with anxiety, another one of those crossroads is to be Black, woman, and Christian and have this experience with anxiety. How does that change things for people being saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost, but also
it adds a whole nother layer, Brittany. So we know, I think that the church is doing a much better job of talking about mental health, but we still have ways to go. Because I still see people in these internet streets talking about, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be anxious. If you trust God, then there's no reason for you to worry. We might have things going on in this administration, but all we got to do is pray about it, right? There's a significant amount of spiritual bypassing that is causing a lot of God's people to remain in their trauma because we're not wanting to address what's really going on. And the same goes for Black women when we are experiencing these different levels of anxiety. So yes, I'm a Christian and also I have anxiety. It doesn't mean that I lack faith in God. It doesn't mean that I don't believe that Jesus is my doctor, because we know he can do it. It just means that I might need to navigate life a little bit differently, right? My prayers might look a little differently than y'all's, right? My prayers might be a little bit more targeted in terms of how to manage my anxiety. There are ways to be able to incorporate spirituality in terms of treatment, but we're not doing anyone justice by continuing to separate the two and making someone feel like they're less than a child of God simply because they're experiencing some sort of mental health diagnosis.
Yeah. That's good. And I love the way you mentioned that piece, right, about not being anxious, because the scripture that comes to mind is be anxious for nothing.
Yeah.
And people feel like this is what scripture says, so I shouldn't have to worry. But there's also the understanding that you don't have to die in your anxiousness. Anxiousness doesn't have to be your permanent lot in life, because we have somewhere to talk to, because it says be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication make your request known to God. So if you're feeling this, don't hold it, give it to the Lord and let him work it out, and allow your faith, and even in the honesty of his strength being made perfect in our weakness, says Lord, I'm having this struggle right now. I have this diagnosis right now. I need you to carry me through. I need your help to cast down all of those vain imaginations that exalts itself over the knowledge of God, and being able to allow the scripture to work with us and allow the Lord to move through us, and understanding that in his sovereignty, he uses therapists too. And that's the part I hate, that there's this dichotomy, or like almost this like friction between the church and mental health, because in this day and age, we still got people calling mental health issues demonic. And now I ain't gonna act like there's not some demonic activity going on. Satan got some people in the chokehold. Okay, I've seen it for myself. However, not everything that we call a demonic spirit is that. And as you said, if we continue to spiritually bypass it, that's why people are continually to get stuck, because they're not doing the practical work that therapy can provide. So when you are sitting with folks in therapy, or whether you are preaching to the masses and on your international tours and things like that, how do you help people? Because one of the things that I see now in my work with folks with issues with sex is that a lot of the work that I do on the front end is helping them to understand that what they have is actually a problem, right? They often come presenting one thing that's not the issue. And when we pull back the layers, here's really where the problem is. And another thing that Black people and Black women have to do, as you said earlier, is we always have to present like we got it all together. We got to work twice as hard for half as much and all of those things. So how do you get people to even discover that their anxiousness or their anxiety has gotten to a place that may need a little bit of help?
Yes. So I always start by normalizing it. And I know it's so simple, but it really can be very powerful, in that if you go throughout your life, Brittany, having to present like you got it all together, but literally crumbling inside, we get to a point we normalize it. We get to a point where we feel as though like, this is just how I did it. This is how my mom did it. This is how Big Mama did it. This is how all my ancestors did it. Therefore, this is just the way it is for Black women. But when I come in and I disrupt and say, yeah, it's how we've done it, but also, is it healthy? How has this been serving you? Is it helping you or hurting you? Then I can start to have a conversation with you about how you want your life to look different. Because a lot of times, if we can be honest with ourselves, just because we do present as that strong person, which again is a product of colonialism and a label that's put on a lot of Black women, which is really a phenomenon. If we really dig into it, we don't like this role. We just do it because it's been done. We've been operating and functioning in this way for centuries, right? And so if we can get to a point where I can get you to see that you're actually, this is uncomfortable for you, this is unhealthy for you, then we can get to a point where we're actually able to move forward and figure out how you want your life to look differently, how you want to experience symptoms, how you want to cope with symptoms, so that you're not having to present with this facade of having it all put together.
Facade. Let's stay there for a second, because and so again, we're having this conversation in sex and anxiety, right? So much of life as a Bible believing, Christ serving Black woman is performative, unfortunately, which is is being forced to carry the weight of that facade, and measured by how well you do it. Like and it's almost, and I hope I can find the language to explain this. The better we are at living in this facade, the better we are at getting people to ignore us. People depend on our skill at being a superwoman, even when we are really dying inside, because then that allows them to continue to ignore us. And by people, a larger society. And we keep auditioning for these roles. And really, unfortunately, while it's not our fault, and we blame white supremacy for these things, but we do have a hand in a little bit of complicit. We're a little bit complicit in its continuing. Right. So when I hear, like, when I see all over social media now about the 92%, how we not in it, we staying out of it, we mind our business and letting them do the things, I like that. But let's keep that up. But also that's as it relates to politics. But how can we bring that in interpersonally, internally, in our relationships? So I'll say it a little differently. What are some ways, practically or otherwise, where we can start taking that cape off, where we can separate ourselves from those stereotypes, from those facades?
I think it really starts with us defining what removing the capes look like for us. If that, I hate the whole like, oh, we gotta live soft, hard wig, soft life, because a lot of times what softness looks like for us can be problematic because it's oftentimes through the lens of what, again, like that whole black excellence type situation, which is problematic, sometimes rooted in white supremacy. So redefining softness looks like, redefining what that means for you, sis, I think is the first step, right? Because then we can start to peel back the layers and figure out how we can live that life. So whether that is, if removing a cape means that I can show up with all of my emotions without judging myself, then that's what softness should be. Because how often can Black women, can we actually express how we feel, express our emotions without walking away? Dang, was I too angry at that woman? Was I too this? Was I too opinionated? Was I too loud? Strong, right? So softness for you might look like allowing yourself to express and to experience emotion without the judgments that have been inculcated in us over years, and allowing that to be pervasive in our lives. Another form of softness, like how we can start to identify that, or again, removing that cape, literally how we want to show up with our family members, right? So one of the main things that causes Black women to often have to wear the cape is because of a concept that we call moral masochism, right? So what we know about masochism, it's your moral duty to take on hurt and pain, or to stand in the gap for other people. And I know that's something that we wear as a badge of honor, but for Black women specifically, moral masochism is killing us. Moral masochism is feeling as though we do have to be the people that save the nation because everybody else voted one way. So now we got to figure things out now just so that the whole nation don't go down the pipes. Like moral masochism has us putting ourselves on the back burner and taking care of our family while we're suffering on the inside, making sure dinner is fed, making sure the kids is in bed at a certain time when we don't have our things together, when we're in the bathroom about to have a mental breakdown, right? So moral masochism has a lot of neglecting our self-care, neglecting our own needs, neglecting our own sadness, anxiety, and crying in the bathroom at work while we're still showing up for the meeting, showing up at work, showing up for presentations, and going above and beyond, because we can't be the reason why this business goes under, right? So moral masochism has Black women, a lot of us, in a headlock. And in order for us to redefine what taking that cape off looks like, or even redefining what softness looks like, we have to figure out how we can start to remove that and take some of these things off of our plate.
I don't even know what to say right now. Like, I have no words. Like, I don't know if I have the range for this conversation, honestly. My God.
It's something that we all go through. Even as I'm talking about it,
baby, you just
even as I'm talking about it, I'm preaching to myself.
Baby, you just read my whole script, honey. Moral masochism. Jesus. And baby, because when I think about, listen, when I think about moral masochism, just my understanding of how you just explained it, and I think about wifely duties, that intersection of how 1 Corinthians 7 is often misappropriated, and this idea that sex is something that you have to do and not something that you get to do. And we are, if I ask myself, why is it that sex is so beautiful, it's such a gift, and people, and it's the sex is the sin that's so easily beset so many of us, why is it that we get into these marriages and there's still so much conflict between husbands and wives as it relates to desire and initiation and what dirty talk and all of these things where, you know, men and women aren't on the same page? Yes, I understand because of the curse that this was going to happen. This infighting was bound to happen because of the curse. I got it. Yeah. But when it comes to sex specifically, I can't explain it no better way. That moral masochism is that, and which is why we got women going in there turning into silly, just laying there. My husband
And
get
so
on top
Mr.
of me, he hurt me all over. And with pride, because I'm a dutiful wife and I never tell him no. And I never once think for a second to look internally, do I like this? Is he actually any good? And somehow am I going to secure my place in heaven because I'm moaning and groaning and eyes rolling in back and ooh, daddy, and my eyes rolling back in my head. And actually, I want him to get off of me. Oh, that has to hurt. It has to hurt. Because then also, even to physical, like we understand like the moral masculine has more emotional pain connotations. But when we consider that women from conservative religions experience sexual pain more often than their non-Christian counterparts, it's not just emotional pain. To a degree, it's physical pain that we're actually enduring physical pain as well, just for the sake of obedience. And there ain't no God in that. There ain't no God in that.
None at all. Yo, I love how you connected that to the marriage bed though.
My God.
Like sometimes we might feel as though, like we said, yeah, I'm gonna just I'm gonna do what I need to do as a wife or what have you. My needs don't matter as long as my husband, my family, like as long as I'm putting their needs ahead of mine.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a badge of honor. It's crazy. And we gotta work together to coin a term that specific to the religious masochism or something like that as it relates to sexuality. Like we got to work together to figure it out. But it's really unfortunate though, because again, that facade, as much as we hear how the struggle is real, like when we think about sex and singleness, the struggle is real. People so horny. People can't wait until their wedding night. Oh, my husband, he better come ready. And I hear women all the time talk about all the things that they gonna do in due season, but then they get in it and it ain't matching all that. They not backing up all that mouth that they had in the car talking about they was the baddest thus far. And I think it is because honestly, I'm horny is more socially acceptable than I'm inexperienced or I'm lonely or I'm afraid. Like it's more socially acceptable to join the fight of how hard abstaining is than to say, you know what, actually take your time, God, because I don't know what to do down there. And then because in this world, there's no safe place for curiosity to land. And I can imagine the same way with anxiety. If now we have TikToks where people getting late diagnosed with ADHD and like a lot of Black women getting these late time like diagnoses of autism and all these other things. Imagine if there was a safe place for these questions to land 5, 10, 15 years ago. Imagine if when they were little girls, when their frustration and their perfectionism, right? And the way in which the gifted ones who start like I started kindergarten at 4 years old. So I was younger than everybody. And I had a mom that A's and B's was it wasn't even congratulated. It was expected. So she wasn't coming to none of the award ceremonies because she had to work. And so that's where you're socialized to believe that excellence is the standard. There's no middle ground. And so to say, I don't know, to say I need help, to say I'm not certain, heaven forbid, to say I don't want to participate in that. You in fourth grade already thinking about your college admissions essay. I found a letter when I was 8 years. I entered an essay contest when I was 8 years old. And it was about how important education was. I was 8 years old talking about I was going to be the next Johnny Cochran. At 8 years old, where were my Barbies? Cause have a dream, but also really relax, right? And so I just think about the disservice that was done to us, so long, and which is why, in addition to all the other things, I love you and the work that you do so much because you are reaching back even though you're talking to adults, and even though and you are reaching back and talking to the child, the little girl on the inside of them. And then the work that you do with young people, you are creating a path where 20 years from now, there will be no additional mental health revolution, because they're getting the help that they need at the moment that they need it.
We hope so. We hope so.
We hope.
Because the way the APA is acting right now, listen, that's a whole nother topic, but we hope so.
I said APA. Y'all doing what now? That's all right. Okay. Me and APA 7, until I'm finished, I'm gonna have to respect you until I'm done, until I'm graduate. Then after that, I'm gonna learn Chicago or something, because right now
Because at this point, what are we doing?
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot, and I knew this was going to be a packed episode, but what are you seeing in your personal, professional, like, time and experience of, like, how is this impacting dating? We know that allegedly there is urine in the dating pool. How much of the contents of that urine is untreated anxiety?
How much of that is your undiagnosed anxiety? And how much of it is pee in the pool that has been created due to our own lack of experience with dating? So, like, it makes me think about how, like, Black girls in general, especially Black Christian girls, we weren't really given permission to date, and weren't really able to, like, freely explore and to understand what dating looks like in a healthy sense. Not saying it whether you not saying you have to do it in those teenage years or whatever, but even outside of that, like, being an adult in dating, what does that look like? What does it not look like? I feel because in the Christian world, a lot of emphasis is placed on marriage, which it should be, right? But I also think that we can do a better job at identifying what healthy Christian dating looks like in your adulthood. And I think that a lot of the pee that we experience comes from us just not knowing what to expect as we're dating, us not knowing how to date, us not knowing how to identify our own expectations and what we're looking for, so that we're not wasting other people's time. Like, it really, sometimes I feel like we created the pee that's in the pool as a result of all the onus is on us. But I do think that if we were more experienced in some of these areas, we wouldn't be having as much piss in the pool as there's thought to be. I don't know. No, I'm still thinking about that. Those are just my thoughts, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, though. I think, like, to that part that you, like, Christian girls, we weren't taught how to date. We're taught we date for marriage, so every kind of interaction is an assessment for marital prospects. And so it's an objectification of the person and the experience. And you're not really able to, because you're only vetting this person for one destination, which really limits our community. And we are called to live in community. And so if you could talk to someone and vet and you're only vetting them for, can he be my husband? Can he be a good father? You're not considering, is he a sound brother in Christ? Is he just like a platonic male friend that I could go bowling with, so that my whole world is not consumed by when my next date is? And also recognizing that in order to be successful, I personally believe, in the dating field, you need men in your life that don't want to do it to you. Because you need to be able to get sound advice from people who can look at your situation, know you inside and out, people you've bared it all to, and can look at this person and show you your blind spots and hold a mirror to the situation in a way that somebody who waiting for their turn is not going to be able to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think that some of our singles ministries need to have an effective date strategy infiltrated in it. I think the focus of singles ministry is to keep us out the bedroom, and that it's ineffectual.
Is that your next class?
No. Girl, no, because I know what need to be done. I don't know how to. I have not put it into practice myself because I am not in the dating field. I'm in the house. Okay. And unless he's the UPS driver, I just don't. I don't. Or DoorDash, I really don't know. And it can't be the Instacart man because male Instacarters, they don't have it all
Are the
together.
worst. They
And that's
don't.
why I couldn't date one. I couldn't date one because you don't make good decisions. Your problem solving skills don't exist. And I could tell by the way you exchange my bananas for a family size box of banana flavored Pop Tarts. And this is why I just can't.
Every time I get a mail dasher or Uber Eats or what have you, I'm switching it. I don't want you shopping for me.
Every
I
single
don't
time.
want you shopping for me. Like
Every single time.
no.
We need to do something about that. But so it's a wrap up because this was a phenomenal conversation. And honestly, we could do this for 2 days because that's how we get down. It's always a thing. But what would you, for somebody watching this who is, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm Christian, and I don't know if my anxiety has gotten to clinical level, but I do know that I'm feeling those sensations of irritability. I'm feeling the heaviness in my chest when I got a big presentation. I'm going out on dates, but I don't know if navigating my Christian values in this world, like it's just a lot of worry time to time. I'm praying and all of this stuff. But what are some just practical everyday considerations that you want people to leave here with as it relates to being a Black woman experiencing anxiety? I can't hear you.
One of my favorite coping strategies for anxiety is deep breathing, right? So as indicated, you're having those feeling those. Can you check 1 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So focusing on how we can practice deep breathing in order to regulate those physical symptoms of anxiety. So again, like deep breathing in slowly for 4 seconds, holding it for 6 seconds, and then breathing out for 4 seconds. Like that is the most simple way that we can start to manage anxiety. And also, everybody has breath, right? So we can practice that literally whenever, wherever. In addition to that, so one thing that I teach in my class, the psychology of Black women, is the bell hooks method of identifying, of reframing your identity, right? And she utilizes a lot of different affirmations and how we can redefine what it means to be a Black woman as opposed to taking on labels that society has put on us. What does it look like for me to reclaim it and to identify how I see myself? And she identifies that as one of the ways to increase love for yourself and decrease anxiety and fears. That's a method that I teach in my psychology of Black women class, so y'all can sign up for that. But yeah, those are just 2 things I will put out there.
Awesome. I don't know what's going on. I think the sound and the picture is a little bit off, but we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that in the back end. We're going to fix that in the back end. Thank you so much, Dr. Shonda, for your time. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for proving to me that I need to read more. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you do.
I think the connection is.
Oh, no. All right, so we're going to close out. This has been Sex and Anxiety with the one and only Dr. Shonda Reynolds. I am your girl, Brittany Broaddus-Smith, the #1 Christian sexologist and your favorite girlfriend. We will see you next week. Bye.